In the year 1412, a child was born in the small village of Domremy, nestled in the northeastern region of France. Joan of Arc, or Jeanne d'Arc in her native tongue, arrived into a world shaken by war. France was in the throes of the 100 Years' War, locked in a brutal struggle with England over the French throne. Her family was humble, farmers who lived a quiet, religious life. Little did anyone know, this simple peasant girl would rise to become one of the most revered figures in history, a saint in the making. From a young age, Joan was deeply religious, spending much of her time in prayer. She often visited the local church, asking for guidance, unsure of what path her life would take. The turmoil of the war was ever present, and she witnessed firsthand the suffering caused by the English occupation. Villages were burned, people were slaughtered, and the French crown seemed powerless against the invaders. The country's despair mirrored Joan's own growing sense of destiny. At the age of 13, something extraordinary happened. Joan began hearing voices, or so she claimed. These voices, she insisted, were those of saints, Saint Michael, Saint Catherine, and Saint Margaret. They spoke to her in clear, commanding tones, telling her that she was chosen to lead France to victory. While most would have dismissed this as youthful imagination, Joan's conviction was unshakable. The voices were not a figment of her imagination, but a divine calling that would change the course of history. Joan, driven by her visions, set out to fulfill what she believed to be her divine mission. She approached the local lord, Robert de Baudricourt, to ask for his help in reaching the Dauphin, the heir to the French throne, Charles VII. Baudricourt was skeptical at first, dismissing Joan as a peasant girl with delusions. But Joan's unwavering belief in her mission was persuasive. After much persistence, he finally agreed to send her to Charles, believing that she might be able to stir the spirit of the army. The journey to meet Charles was arduous, fraught with danger and uncertainty. Joan traveled through enemy territory, often under the cover of night. When she finally arrived at the court in Chinon in 1429, she was taken before the Dauphin. Charles, who was uncertain about his fate and the future of France, listened intently to her words. Joan told him that she had been sent by God to deliver France from its enemies and to crown him as the rightful king of France. The Dauphin, intrigued by her certainty and the power in her words, decided to put her to the test. Joan was given armor and a sword, and she was placed at the head of an army that was desperately in need of leadership. She was no military strategist. She had never fought in a battle before, but her presence alone was enough to inspire the troops. Her belief in her divine mission gave her a strength that no amount of experience could provide. Joan rallied the soldiers with passionate speeches, urging them to fight for the glory of France and the will of God. The army, once demoralized, suddenly found a renewed sense of purpose. Joan's first major test came at the Siege of Orléans. The English had held the city for several months, and its fall seemed inevitable. But Joan, with her unwavering belief, convinced Charles to give her command. On April 29, 1429, she led an assault on the English forces. The battle was fierce, but Joan's leadership and the fervor she inspired in her men turned the tide. By May 8th, Orléans was liberated. The victory was nothing short of miraculous, and Joan's fame spread like wildfire across France. She had proven that God was indeed on her side. In the wake of Orleans, Joan's influence continued to grow. The French people, once on the brink of despair, began to rally behind her. Charles VII, emboldened by the victory, made the journey to Reims to be crowned king, as was customary for French monarchs. Joan was at his side, her eyes fixed on the coronation that she had fought so hard to bring about. On July 17, 1429, Charles was crowned Charles VII in a grand ceremony, and Joan stood proudly beside him, her mission fulfilled. It was a moment of triumph, but it would also mark the beginning of her downfall. Despite her victory, the war was far from over. Joan's rise had made her many enemies, and not just among the English. Some French nobles, suspicious of her power and influence, began to plot against her. She was a peasant girl, after all, and her rise to prominence threatened the established order. Joan's presence on the battlefield continued to be a source of hope for the French army, but her enemies were working quietly to undermine her. In 1430, during a campaign in Compiègne, Joan's luck ran out. The French army was ambushed by the Burgundians, allies of the English, and Joan was captured. The fall of such a great and revered figure was a crushing blow to the French cause. The English, who had long sought to silence her, were elated by her capture. They saw her as a symbol of French resistance and sought to break her spirit through trial and humiliation. Joan was taken to Rouen, where she was put on trial by the Inquisition. The charges against her were numerous: heresy, witchcraft, and even claims that she had disguised herself as a man. The trial was a farce, designed to discredit her and strip her of her influence. Joan, despite the intense pressure and fear, remained steadfast in her beliefs. She was not a heretic. She was a servant of God. Yet the court, eager to see her fall, ignored her cries for justice. On May 30th, 1431, after months of imprisonment and trial, Joan was sentenced to death by burning at the stake. The English and their allies in the church hoped that by killing Joan, they would extinguish the flame of rebellion in France. But Joan's death only served to cement her legend. As the flames consumed her body, she remained resolute in her faith, her final words reportedly being, "Jesus, Jesus, Jesus." Joan's death was a tragedy, but it marked the beginning of her sainthood. The French people, who had once feared and doubted her, now mourned the loss of their greatest hero. Her martyrdom galvanized the French resistance, and within a few years, the English would be driven from France. Charles VII's reign was solidified, and Joan's memory became a symbol of French unity and strength. For centuries after her death, Joan of Arc's legacy endured. She was remembered not only as a national hero, but also as a martyr of faith. Her visions, which once seemed like the ramblings of a peasant girl, were now seen as the voice of God guiding her every step. In 1920, Joan was canonized as a saint by the Catholic Church, a testament to the power of her faith and the incredible impact she had on the world. Joan's story has inspired countless generations. From the theaters of war to the halls of history, her name is synonymous with courage, conviction, and the power of belief. The little shepherd girl from Domremy became one of the greatest heroes France has ever known, and her story continues to resonate with people worldwide. Her journey from obscurity to legend is a testament to the idea that even the most unlikely of heroes can change the world. Joan of Arc was not merely a military leader or a saint. She was a symbol of hope, a beacon of light in the darkest of times. Her story will live on forever, etched in the annals of history, reminding us that faith and courage can overcome even the greatest of odds. The legend of Joan of Arc continues to inspire not just France, but the entire world. Her courage in the face of overwhelming adversity teaches us the value of standing firm in our beliefs, no matter the consequences. Even in death, Joan's legacy shines brightly, a reminder that true greatness is often born in the most unlikely of circumstances.